Take two, worship planning, Jordan Miller. Okay, I must have hit a button. How long have I been there? I've been there 8 years. That's a good question. Been there 8 years. I went to school at Concordia University in Seward, Nebraska, back when they had a worship arts program. That's now dissolved a little bit. Yes, send me your frustrations. And was a blessed time for me. During my college time, I also got to go up to Our Savior in Norfolk and lead from time to time. So it feels like 12 years that I've worked there, since I did some stuff with them while I was in college, but officially director of worship there for 8 years now. Before that, and I didn't say this the last session, I was a volunteer and was a part of Salem Lutheran Church in Tomball, Texas. So I'm a product of that. I was on their worship team when I was 10 years old. So I can tell you I've been doing church ministry for 20 years, which makes me feel old, even though I'm maybe not. So, I love the church, been doing it a long time. This is my, quote, 15 minutes of fame. I got to be on a church front tech tour with Jake Goslin. Church front fans? Cool. The few, the proud. The nerdy worship leaders. We're the first Lutheran church to ever be featured on the channel with a worship tech tour. It has about 50,000 views. We have one church we built that you saw, kind of separated two areas. So we do our contemporary worship in the worship center. Somebody want to hit the lights? This projector is just not the brightest. There we go. You can see it that way. Our worship space for our contemporary worship, and then we have another space just across our lobby area, narthex, that we call the Point. And into the sanctuary there. So we do simultaneous services too, one in each room. The pastor does a message and one goes to the other. So planning for us is a big deal because we have to make sure we have enough stuff towards the end so that the pastor can switch and come to the other service, and so we program out. We also started a ministry with local TV station. So for a while we had to be at an hour, or else they were going to take us off TV, and you don't hear the benediction, and then the service never ends and nobody ever leaves. Right, in the old Aaronic times, they're waiting for the benediction to leave. So hooked up with a local news station during COVID and have continued to do that. Now we're televising and streaming our contemporary service and our traditional service with a halftime show in the middle, which is pretty fun and pretty cool, and I can touch on that too if you guys want to talk about that. But it's a nerdy video. It shows all the worship tech in an hour. Bear with it. But it's super nerdy. Scripture time. 1 Peter 4, 10 through 11. If you were in my last session, I'm hitting it again. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, right? That's why we call it a worship service, right? We're using it to serve others, but also to be faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. If anyone speaks, they should do so as one who speaks the very words of God. I'll also say if anybody sings, works with speaking to. If anyone serves, they should do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised through Jesus Christ. To Him be the glory forever and ever. And one of my favorite sections, this is, Paul didn't write this part. This is the title I think I took from NIV. Good order in worship, right? When you come together, each of you has a hymn or a word of instruction or revelation, a tongue or interpretation. That sounds like a liturgy to me. Everything must be done so that the church may be built up. My favorite verse. For God is not a God of disorder, but a God of peace. So that's my proof for organized, right? Not a God of disorder, a God of peace, as in all the congregations of the Lord's people. But everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way. How nice is that, right? Bryce Seth Pressure. Is everything done in a fitting and orderly way, or scrambling at the last minute? So those are some of the things that we're going to touch on topic today. So when we're talking about worship planning, these are the areas that I'm going to get into. I'm going to talk about a worship planning meeting. Maybe this is something that works with your pastors or your worship board, whatever size church you're at there. I'm going to touch on kind of what I do and my recommendations for a worship team meeting, aka rehearsal, right? Music world, you call things rehearsal. You don't call it practice. Practice is sports, right? You wouldn't say a baseball rehearsal. Same as you would. Or you'd say a music practice. No, a music rehearsal, right? Or worship team meeting. You can combine all those things. Then I'm going to talk about some tools that help with worship planning. Primarily going to talk about Planning Center Online and ProPresenter a little bit. And then we'll have some time for questions. So, getting into a worship planning meeting. I put in pastors, in parentheses. I like to do this with my pastors a lot. Do some prep. right? We usually do this kind of meeting the Monday after worship, when it's freshest in our mind. I mean, freshest would be Sunday after church, but that's when pastor's nap time is. So Monday morning, right away, while we're still thinking things, or maybe had some frustrations or notes that we put down, we evaluate what we did for worship, right? We do that. That's kind of debrief review. Before that, try to do prayer time. If you're doing a study with your pastors, talk about life. I do like to ask them, what football game did you watch, or what did you do? I mean, have a little bit of life conversation, and then get into your nitty-gritty. So you kind of have that nice transition too of, okay, now it's business hat time versus personal hat time. Starting with a word of prayer too, just to gather each other and focus on what you're going to do for the week. So starting with a debrief, review. I kind of got ahead of myself. Review that Sunday. Debrief. What happened? How did the service go? How long did it take? Have you ever asked that question? How long was service today? Right? How long was service today? And is there a way we can track how long service was? And if you're somebody that's streaming and you're on TV and you have an hour slot, it's important. Did we go over that hour? Did we go under that hour? So you start to think that way. Review. How did the people sing? Did we get the message across? Was something distracting? Were the hymns too fast or too slow? Did the hymns really talk what you were talking about? Do we need 3 hymns at communion now? Did more people show up? All these things that you can talk about at this worship review meeting to really kind of build your team. And you start to evaluate, why are we doing the things that we're doing? Did the reader show up? What miscommunications happened? It's like, well, we had a baptism, but the baptism family didn't come to the front. They were in the back, and we didn't actually know if they showed up. Right? Those are things that, I didn't know that, but maybe we need to figure out a way to communicate to make sure we can get the baptism family at the front so we know they're there. Different things throughout the church that you can do and fit within your worship time, your big service time. Then talk about the upcoming week. What is the word this week? What are we hitting on? What do we need to touch on? Are you going to have slides this week for your message? Start to get those balls rolling early. Hey, I had this idea for a video. I watched this commercial the other day. Is that something we can get in? The more you can do that Monday rather than Thursday helps kind of get your creative juices going. Hopefully you've planned maybe some things earlier than that. That's my next slide, plan ahead. But what are we really doing this week? What's our focus? Is there something we're doing different this week? Maybe this is like a baptism Sunday or something like that maybe we should schedule a meeting Wednesday or Thursday too to make sure we're on the same page if things got done that we talked about at this meeting. So really talk about what is the thing for this week. I would recommend, this isn't the time to start picking your songs. Especially if you have musicians you need to get stuff out to ahead of time. Maybe your organist doesn't have time to practice, she's going on vacation or something. Maybe get to know that ahead of time if you can. I've also known in meetings that I've had, inspiration strikes. He's like, what, this week we're talking about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and I'm really going to lean on the phrase, and even if you don't, I'll still worship you. I'll be like, there's a song that goes with that. Let's Audible put in the Even If by Mercy Me for this week, just so we can hit that message home. Those happen. But if you're talking about that upcoming week and what's happening, and we want to be impactful with our message, and we want to tell that story this week and really push home the word that God's going to bring through the pastor, we want to hit on that for this week. Then plan ahead, right? Okay, this is the sermon series we're in. Where are we going to, right? How many weeks left we got of the sermon series, or what? Are we still in the book of Matthew for our lectionary? How is this going to finish out? Where's the story leading to? Can we start to go week to week with our sermon series? That's kind of what I see in a sermon series model too, because then it's like, if I come for the first week, and right now we're doing the temptation of Jesus, and we're calling the series Not Today, Satan. We want to make sure that people hear the end of the story too, when Jesus finally says, not today, Satan, dealing with temptations. So those are week to week. We want people to stay with us, and we talk about each of those temptations each week. So how are we re-engaging them each week to make sure that they come back to hear the rest of the story, right? That's an important thing that we do. Not that this week isn't important, but how does it build throughout the series? What is the next series we're going to do? I like to at least have a plan of the year to talk with my pastors about what is the Holy Spirit leading us, and where our congregation needs to go as a whole, right? Where is God taking us? What do we maybe need to spend some time on? There are great tools and resources then to find out that information. Something new I don't have a slide for, but anybody use the YouVersion Bible app? different stuff, YouVersion Bible studies. They started doing YouVersion for churches. They have a tool that if they set on their YouVersion app, your church is their church, you start to get some data from them. And so we're starting to see like what are the most popular searched words on their YouVersion app. So they're looking for love, right? That's one of the top ones that people search for all the time. Maybe we should do a sermon series on God's love, because that's what our people are looking for, right? That's what they're really searching for, and we can really hit them where they need to grow, right? What we can do with that. So collecting some data, maybe even polling your congregation, kind of feeling where we need to go. Hey, there's a mission trip coming up. Maybe we should talk about, going, serving, something like that that leads to events in your year. Obviously, times like Lent, Advent, right? Those are topics that you can talk about. You can course those out in your year. But what are their series events? You have a special event coming up. We know, we have a baptism Sunday. Maybe we can teach on baptism for 3 weeks, something like that. Plan ahead. Always save time for brainstorming. This is a pastor's favorite time of the meeting. Go crazy. Get out your biggest whiteboard and just write things that work. Because Tuesday, when they come look at the whiteboard, they're like, that's a bad idea. But at least you brainstormed it, right? Get out all the bad ideas so that the good ideas really stick. Brainstorm. Take time to be like, what if we put the piano on the other side of the stage? Could we have some significance with that? Brainstorm the crazy things in worship that you guys want to try or do, so that it's out there. Take that time to brainstorm and think, how can we communicate this message effectively? How are we doing this week in, week out? Can someone maybe crack the door a little bit? It's a little hot in this room. And in case anybody wants to run out. No, I'm just kidding. But then, biggest other part, this is the part pastors maybe don't like. After you have brainstorming session, have decision time. It's like, okay, that was time for out there thinking. Now what are we going to do? We don't really have a next series. Let's pick one. Let's think about it. Let's do this. Throw out ideas. Okay, now we need to nitty gritty. We got 10 minutes. Let's pick an idea, pick a lane, and go for it. Make a decision time. Otherwise, if you just talk about what we could do, you're not going to know what you will do. So have some decision time there.
How long does that take? An hour or 2
Great question. I try to aim for an hour, at most.
An hour?
Yeah, hour at most. Usually, for my situation with my pastor, about 30, 45 minutes in, they start getting phone calls. People start coming in to talk to them, different things. They start to get distracted. So I try to squeeze it down. We try to cover all that ground. But we've also had meetings where maybe there's not a lot to do, and we've gone 2 hours. We really needed to brainstorm. Christmas coming up. I had this great idea. Now we need to flesh that out a little bit. How are we going to build to that? So your meeting can blossom and grow. But once you have that kind of safety and communication where you can develop that time, and maybe it's with a bigger team. Maybe you have more people that you want to hear input from. It's a great way to get brainstorm out there. But and I try to tell my pastors this: if you have a meeting, like I think we meet 8:30 Monday morning. If you have to go at 9 or you have to go at 9:30, say it now so that we're setting a timer and we're touching these and we make sure we know what's happening next week, or we know we need to start planning ahead, just so we save time for that. Questions on this meeting?
Is that your whole worship team? You've got
No, this is just
traditional.
Yeah.
Is that all together?
Yes. So we do talk about, in our context, I'll tell you too, we do a blended service on Saturday night. We do a contemporary service and a traditional service. It's the same message for all of them, so that keeps it pretty easy. My pastors don't necessarily, we don't talk about the songs I picked. They're not picking that, and they have Planning Center. They can look at it. So on their own, if they want to tell me they have an issue with a song or something like that, they've kind of learned to trust me, and I think theologically through the words and different stuff and pick towards that. But that's where the Brie Beef, I've had my pastors say, I didn't like that song. That first song didn't have enough energy, wasn't my favorite. It's a time we could be open and honest and debrief it. And I might be like, yeah, we're keeping it. Or like, yeah, maybe you're right. I don't think it resonated with the congregation either. Maybe we could ditch it or whatever. So, yes.
Just to understand better what your context is coming into this meeting.
Sure.
Are these paid people who are on staff? Is this volunteers?
Good question. So this meeting is staff, and right now it's me, director of worship, and my senior pastor and associate pastor. So for us, it's a meeting of 3. Now, we do often, if we're doing, sometimes we'll do sermon series that we're tying in children's ministry, or we're tying in youth ministry, or doing a big Sunday school launch or something, that will bring in those staff as well, bring our DCE to brainstorm some different ideas, so we can always bring more staff into the meeting. I'll show you another meeting that I have with like volunteers and a worship board,
But you're talking
different.
essentially here that the people who are at this are paid to be at this.
Paid to be at this, and this is the like staff planning meeting for the worship service between those in charge of worship. Like, this isn't the meeting for slide operators or anything like that. These are the people, designing the worship service, building that, and preaching in it, or being a part of the liturgy or whatever. Good question. Okay, moving on. All right, so this is my worship team meeting and rehearsal. So this is, so I have both in. So I have I started a worship ministry board. We call it the worship ministry team, that once a month, every Sunday. For a while, I would order pizza. Then my wife started cooking. Now they're all taking turns cooking, which is pretty cool. It's a secured Sunday meal after church, right at the church, for me and for my family. That's a board that, I said, can you make a once a month meeting? Can you be involved in worship? That kind of thing, where they can kind of be a sound off board to me. There are people that are involved in worship, or there are people that are super passionate about worship that we've selected, and we talk about things. So I usually try to start with a devotion. Whether we're going through a book, a simple devotion I like to do is called SOAP, if you've ever heard of a SOAP devotion. S stands for scripture or song, so I'll take a scripture, kind of like I did there, and we'll do observations with it. What do you see in this passage? What's speaking to you? Application, how does it work for us? And then we pray about it. Quick devotion. I do it with lyrics of a song. Today we sang Cornerstone. My hope is built on nothing less. Let's really dive into the words of the song. What did we sing today? We observe it. Right? What jumps out at you? Oh, I never thought about that line before. How does that apply to us? How is God working through the song, through the message? Pray. Devotion's done. Cool. Same thing. I do a debrief review. What do you see that's going well in worship? What are the things that aren't maybe working so well? What are distractions that we have? What are you hearing from other people that maybe they're not telling me or the pastors, right? But they'll tell you because you're somebody in the booth or somebody who's greeting. What are you hearing? What's working? What didn't work? What are things we need to fix? The screws are really loose on the piano stand. We need to get a new piano stand. Those kind of things they can bring up because they know it. And then can report to me as the director to fix. Upcoming week series. Tell them what you talked about with the pastors in that meeting. Hey, pastors are so excited for what we're doing for Christmas this year. This is going to be an awesome opportunity. Because then they, as leaders, get excited about it. They'll go start telling the other congregation. Then the congregation kind of knows something cool is coming. Right? Word of mouth kind of gets out there, and you have some leaders that are leading that way in the excitement. Builds more buy-in for your church a little bit too. Challenges and support. This is where they tell me, I was singing last Sunday and you forgot to put the notes for the singers on Planning Center. Can you do a little better at that? I'm like, yes, I am so sorry. It's a chance for me to reconcile with them, challenge them. They're like, how can we help with that? How can we know ahead of time? And part of it's, I need to do better. That's a lot of my answer half the time. But what are ways that they can support me? Hey, we noticed, some of these slides were misspelled. Can we have somebody that maybe double checks those or something like that? Great times to talk about those. Planning ahead. Let them be creative, right? Let your volunteers be creative. Then I go to my pastor's meeting and say, hey, somebody had this kind of cool idea. What if we tried that? But then bounce it off your pastors. Let it come to you and kind of filter it through. Then you can go to your worship planning team. And then set goals for your worship planning, right? Hey, this month I want to make sure everybody comes to rehearsal on time. It's a goal that we've had before. I want to make sure that everybody looks at Planning Center at least once. Let's try to encourage the team as a whole, each of the volunteers that we have, to be a little more prepared so that they're ready for sound check, so that we're ready to go with that. I try to keep that no more than an hour or two. It's a Sunday, there's football on, go home. I'm just kidding. Manage their time. They've already maybe been serving the whole morning just like you have. Try to keep that to an hour. I try to save a little bit of time at the end too, in case there's more devotional. We don't take notes for that section. How can we pray for you? You get to be more relational in that time too. Any questions on just that worship ministry team meeting? Yes.
Same team every week then?
I do. I just have it like a worship ministry team board sounding off thing. It's all volunteer in my case. My wife's on it too because she has lots of opinions and ideas of things that I do wrong.
Is this a team that serves that Sunday morning?
Not always. They're ones that I really trust and are so passionate about. They're usually ones that serve 2 to 3 times a month because they're super into it. And if they're not serving, they're one in the congregation that if something broke, they would run and fix it because they're that passionate about it. So
You said you just have this meeting once a month.
I do have this meeting once a month. Yeah, once a month.
It's on Sunday after worship.
Right now it works for everybody to do Sunday after worship because that way too, if there's something that Sunday, they're like, it's fresh on my brain. So and that rather than do another time, they're usually and they're all ones that are pretty much in church every Sunday, so they're going to be there most of the time. And if they're not there. We upload the meeting notes on stuff and meet there. Okay. Good questions. Anything else on that before I go to rehearsal? Cool. Rehearsal. You can see it's similar. Little devotion time with your team, right? Don't just be like, all right, start on song 1. A little devotion time with your team. Hey, here's what pastor's going to be talking about this week. This is why some of the reason I picked the songs, right? Well, how is God going to use us to declare the praise this week? What is the message that we're going to be carrying through the music, right? Where's Pastor hopefully going to get? Hopefully he says this. There's been times that he's in the room now, so I'll make jokes. But it's like, I picked this song because Pastor's going to do it, and they're like, Jordan, he didn't talk about that. I'm like, I don't know, I was wrong. I picked the wrong song this week. Holy Spirit led a different direction. Right? Do a little devotion time. Do your, get your sound checks, get all your instruments out, all that stuff I didn't put in there. But then do an overview of your service, right? I talked about this is why we're doing these songs. Most of the time, kind of in our context, we have basic as same template that works for worship, but oftentimes it's different. Like this week, we're doing, usually we do 3 songs at the beginning. It's like this week's confirmation, we're doing 3 songs at the end because communion's going to take longer this week. So we're moving our service team around. Let them know that kind of ahead of time so that they have an idea. Because again, if you tell them, and we do a Thursday night rehearsal, as well as like a Sunday morning sound check run through, I tell them Thursday it's going to be different because I know come Sunday they're going to be like, is it different today? It's like, yep, remember, I told you Thursday, it's going to be different. So keep repeating it. Roadmaps for songs, right? Before I get into a song, here's the roadmap. Hey, we're going to take the verse, we're going to do the chorus. Kind of talk about that at the top of the song, because otherwise if you kick into it and they're like, wait, where are we going? Right? Kind of talk through it once. I've done it too, and we've gotten to a place where, I do roadmaps. I'm like, verse, chorus, chorus. Got it? And they're like, no, say it again. Like verse, chorus. Then we play through. It's like, are we going to the chorus 2 times? Yeah. Verse, chorus. You have to hit the roadmap a couple times. But as long as you start with it, you might you might at least get through the intro of a song before they're like, wait, are we starting the chorus or the verse? Before you do that. Then intentional rehearsal. I use this word intentional because you want to be listening to, and I'm kind of working in the context of a band, right? If you're an organist, you're playing, you're kind of relying on yourself, and as you practice, you have your own intentional picking sounds. When you have a band, you have to manage multiple people, kind of like stops, but you can't just pull them and they make a sound, right? They have to play it. So with an intentional rehearsal or a band, you're starting to see, okay, bass player, if you're playing low notes, you can't play high notes. Stay at the low notes, right? I have this graphic here. This is from Sweetwater. It's a big thing about frequency. But what I mean by intentional is stay in your frequency range, right? Sub, right? Your bass guitar does a lot here, right? Let the bass guitar stay here. If the bass guitar, the kick drum, the snare drum, the electric guitar player, the organist, the piano player, everybody's singing in this frequency range, it's going to sound really muddy. And 9 times out of 10, that person who's sitting in your chairs or your pews at church are saying, man, it's so loud today. It's really just everybody was playing in the same frequency. Or it's playing and it's super muddy and nothing's clear. So be intentional. Especially, I play keys a lot. I'm always listening to my electric guitar player because it's way easy as a piano player to cover the whole frequency of sound. You can do all of it. So I tape off this end. This is the bass player, right? So I have this and this to play with, middle and high. And if the guitar player is playing high, I might want to play middle. If the guitar player is rocking in middle to low, I might want to play high. Do something intentional. So you kind of stay out of each other's way. So there's times I'll stop, a song and say like, hey, what are you playing there? That's what I mean by intentional. Well, I practiced this and I thought it was really cool. I was like, great, I think it sounds good. Let's do it. I'm going to change what I'm doing so that it fits in the frequency of sound, right? The spectrum of sound there. Same goes for singers, right? Be intentional. Are you singing harmony or are you leading, right? Who's leading the song? Who's like the main leader? Because if you have 3 male vocalists all singing the same thing but slightly different, who's the congregation following? Right? Who's the leader on this song? Who do we want to make sure is I'm the lead in the charge and the rest of us are supporting vocals, right? You don't say background vocals because you're supporting. Supporting vocals for that, right? Who's doing a harmony? Are we doing harmony all the time? Or are we going to make it intentional to be just at the bridge so that when we're building and we repeat, I will build my life 6 times. If you've ever done Build My Life. Builds a lot of times. Maybe don't sing harmony all 6 times. Hold the alto, then bring in the alto, right? Then bring in the soprano. Be intentional about where your spectrum of sound is and have an idea of that ahead of time in your rehearsal. Just as an idea. And you're going to have times too where you're hearing. Because now and hopefully they practiced on their own ahead of time. They're not just hearing the song for the first time. That's a big hurdle to cross. I'll still have times when I can hear it because we have in-ears and there's microphones in our drum enclosure. He's listening to the song in the drum cage. And I'm like, all right, here we go. It's starting to click. You should have listened to it ahead of time. Here we go. And then they're like, does it build here? Yes, it builds here. But you're intentionally doing that. And then at the worship meeting, they're like, we need to tell that drummer to listen to it. So then you have support. Leave some room for Sunday. This is my favorite part of rehearsal. When you're getting close, so I always say 1.5 hours max for rehearsal. Don't go over that. We're getting close to that. We start at 5:30. We're getting close to 7 o'clock, and we're grooving. And the drummer, let's do it one more time. I think we can nail it. I'm like, no. Save it for Sunday, because then they'll go home and practice. Right? If we're doing it on a Thursday night and we didn't nail it, they might listen to it once more. If we do it Thursday night and we did it that one extra time and we're good, he's not going to touch that song again. He's not going to listen to that song again, or he or she. They're not going to listen to it, right? They're like, we crushed it, we're good. And then Sunday rolls around, we peak too soon. And now it's like, oh, I forgot that cool build we did Thursday. It's like, no, let them stew on it for 3 days. That's what I love. And I tell people Thursday, it's not going to sound good. It's going to come together Sunday, and then it's, yes, God is here and did a miracle, right? Because it sounded terrible Thursday. But if you leave some room, that gives them some empowerment to practice, to go home and own their instrument, own their part a little bit. It can create some unease. I love to live in that unease, right? And I've had some text me. It's like, man, I wish we would have done this. And then they'll send a video of them nailing that part. And it's like, good, you're practicing. Goal accomplished. Cool. And then always end in prayer. Before they leave, I always pray too that they don't get sick. A little insurance, right? It's not how it works, but pray we get sick. Hey, God, you're going to use us this week. Let these songs that we've been practicing resonate in our lives so that we can make an impact to the people on Sunday. 1.5 hours max with sound check. I don't like long rehearsals. I know they don't either. They're hungry by 7 o'clock. They haven't eaten dinner. I haven't either. You can start to get hangry. Get done with it. I try to save a little time too if I can leave 10 minutes early, so that way those that need to go. And then some people want to hang around and chat. How's life going? What's up? I don't have the same team play with each other. I try to mix all my musicians so that the musicianship kind of builds with each other in the band, and so they get to connect, right, with that little extra time that maybe they have in rehearsal, and so it's good for them to get to know each other that way too. Any questions on rehearsal? Cool.
Kind of do.
Okay.
So we have our worship team, and they rehearse Sunday morning.
Sunday morning for worship.
How do you convince them to make rehearsing prior to Sunday morning work? That's a big change.
It's a big change.
And
Yeah, it's a big change. Sometimes failing is the best way, unfortunately, because it's like, man, why didn't we nail that? Well, did you practice it? Sometimes that self-realization is good.
there's like a lack of concern with nailing things.
And that's where it's how are we setting a bar for excellence too? Laying that out with your team. That's why having like a worship ministry team and maybe supporting your pastors as well is so important. So that it's like, okay, how are we? What is the goal here? Right? Make sure you set goals, and maybe all your team is on that team, right? And maybe one night your rehearsal is this meeting, where it's like, hey, what's our we're only going to do 3 songs this week, or we're going to do songs we know, to spend some time on where do we want to go? How do we want to grow? How do we want to build? Why are we doing what we're doing? Are you just here so you can be up front, or why are we doing this? Right? Get some real talk with some of your volunteers too, because then they might say like, oh yeah, maybe and I tell there's a great book. It's called Worship Leaders We Are Not Rock Stars. It's not CPH, not a Lutheran book or anything, but it's got really good points of you are a worship leader, right? If you are in some capacity up front, greeting in your church, you are a worship leader. You are a theologian. You are a liturgist. It has all these chapters. It's a fantastic book. It's about 120 pages. Worship leaders, we are not rock stars. Right, but it does say what we are, and it's been great. We went through it. That was part of our worship ministry team meeting to let them realize, like, you're a worship leader too. So if you have ideas or you have songs or whatever, but also we take ownership of this, right? I'm just the bass player on Sunday. It's like, no, someone looks at you to how maybe they should smile in worship, or if you're enjoying the song, they should enjoy the song, right? Or man, we're singing these powerful words, and I'm getting it. Somebody else might get that reaction too. As worship leaders too, we're a mirror of the congregation, right? We're sending praises to God, but we're also a reflection of how the congregation could look. Because a lot of times they're like, I don't know what to do, right? As a worshiper, I don't know how to act. But if they have a leader showing them kind of a reflection of how they're praising and worshiping God, and that's why I love a Thursday rehearsal to an empty room, because it's an audience of one right there, right? The same way you play on Thursday, maybe not staring at your music, but we might do a time run through. I'll be like, don't look at your stuff as much. We're going to mess up a little bit. Just worship a little bit, right? Let's get out there, do your flex, maybe bass player move this way once. Ooh. Get out there a little bit when nobody's here watching you, so that you can see what it feels like, so that you can then lead a congregation to do that. Singers, I've talked to singers, and that's really helped them to just even get the courage to raise their hand. If I can do it Thursday when nobody's there, great. Now I'm more prepared to do it on a Sunday, right? There's that opportunity there to do it. Good question. Yes?
For your worship band, your worship team, during the service.
Yep.
People are looking at music, you got iPads, memorize everything. How are you doing it?
Yes, great question. We do 5 songs almost every Sunday, so I don't make them memorize it. I do tell them to look at it as little as possible, to kind of know where it's going, so you're not buried in it. I do kind of teach to look up and look out. I try to tell some of my players not to put the music stands way up here. None of my singers have music stands. We put the words on the back wall on 2 big TVs, so that they can be more free, so that they're looking at lyrics there. I also tell them you can't stare at the TVs because they'll turn off. They won't really turn off, but if you stare at it long enough. So I always try it. My philosophy for singing, this is what I did when I was a kid too. I look at the words. I use the words as a glancing point, right? So you're constantly. So I find somebody who's really into it. They're into it. I can get energy from them. Find my words, and then find somebody who's not into it, and be like, you should be like them. You should be like them over there, right? Let's get into it. See my words. Okay, what's coming up? So. It's a balance. It's a dance. You really encourage them. It's a long road, but hey, let's look out for this one. I've had some guys, you pick some song, Reckless Love, it's the same 4 chords. Like, we can memorize that one, guys. Like, that one we can, you can have your sheet music there. Don't look at it. Like, especially if you're a bass player, you're not looking at the words all the time. Look out, look up, look at somebody, make eye contact.
Unless you're a bass player that sings.
Unless you're a bass player that sings. Good point. But then look at, I always tell people too, look at other people in the band. Be jamming with them like you're into it. Because if I'm like, I don't want to look at them, it's like, why should the congregation look at them? Look like you're having fun. This is fun. Because if you're having fun and you're enjoying worshiping the Lord, maybe you'll enjoy worshiping the Lord, right? The people that are up there, have the posture. I always tell people too, sorry, I'll get to your question. When you're not up front leading, you're still leading from the seats. It really hit one of my singers one time. He was singing out, and then he kind of paused to be reflective of the words and was into it. And the guy next to him nudged him and said, "Hey, would you keep singing? Because I'm not going to sing if you're not." And it dawned on him like, oh man, when I'm singing, I'm still a leader because people are going to listen to me when I'm next to them. So I have to still lead and sing for the congregation. And I know the song because I'm part of the team. We did that song 2 weeks ago when I was singing. let's lead from the seats as well. That goes back to the we're not rock stars. We're always leading. You're always part of the team, whether you're up on the platform or not. You're leading all the time. So be leaders out there. And I've had some people too that's like, my schedule's so busy I need to come off the team. Great, you're still on the team. Just do it from where you're sitting on Sunday, please. It's really impactful. So they're always still part of the team. Yes, question.
You mentioned 2 monitors. Do you have lyrics on one, and then you've got chord charts on the other?
No, I just do words. They're the same on both sides. We have really wide back room, but I do and I'll show a Pro Presenter. The lyrics on the left side, the ones that are on, and then the next words coming up on the next slide. So they're always going kind of right to left. The words move from right to left, so you're always reading the left side. So that way too, if the slide operator's slow, they see the next words, they have confidence. We call them confidence monitors. They see it. I don't put chords up there for the band. I still use, we're kind of, some of them have iPads, so they're using Planning Center Music Stand, or I print chord charts for people to do that, or whatever we need for the song. So, good question. Any other questions on rehearsal stuff? Okay, moving on. Tools, okay? And this is where we'll get out of the slides. I did put the slides for both my sessions on the Whova app. I think I did it right. Otherwise, the demo stuff won't be in there. There'll be this audio recording. But I do some more demo stuff and answering your questions. But Planning Center Online, huge tool. I've been using it since I was a volunteer. Planning Center's been around for a long time. They use different modules that all stems from people, right? There's a session tomorrow, if you can go to it, but Joel Wetstein's called All About Your People, touching on kind of what that does with your church management software. The one I'm going to be hitting on is the services application. Helps everybody get on the same page, because that's hugely important. If everybody's looking at the same document, even if you're a musician and you have a sheet of music that's in the key of G, and somebody else has a sheet of same piece of music but it's in the key of F, it's not going to work too well. Right? You have to be on the same page. Same comes for orders of worship and what's happening and what's going on. It's an online-based system, so you can access it from any computer as long as you have internet. There's a phone app that goes with it, some tools like that. I'm also going to touch into Pro Presenter. The two intermingle. I know some people may not use it that way, but I use it that way because it saves time in building my services for slides. Because a lot of times I'm doing same songs I've done in Planning Center, orders I've done, creeds I've done, communion liturgy I've done, and it just puts it right back in there. If you're someone that's maybe doing PowerPoint and taking each and every week to get those songs for slides, this is going to save you or who's ever doing your stuff tons of time and money, because it's just going to be so much faster. So before I get into that, I'll put this slide up. It has my email in case you have more questions or want to contact me or reach out. That's there. rsave.org is our website. My email's on there as well. Watch some of our stuff. Yes?
Are you going to talk about how you connect Planning Center and Pro Presenter?
Yep.
Because I'm curious about it.
Yes, I am. Big part of it. Okay, cool. So this is, from a wide kind of scope, a service inside of Planning Center Online. So we have two, and this is looking at the contemporary service. I'll show the other service models too. For our contemporary service, we do two services, a 9 o'clock and a 10:30, and this is how we line up our service. You'll notice too, some of the timings don't have it. So this service, and I'm actually going to put it in the notes here, description, only at 9 a.m. So it's all on the same page, right? It's super clear. Communion this week only at the 9 o'clock service, right? I have service notes inside here. So this is the first song we're doing. It's in the key of G. Jordan is leading it, and we're going right into the second song after this on the tracks that we're using. So you can use those item notes to really tell your team and remind them, if they're practicing at home, here's what's coming, here's what's going. Andrea's going to lead this song. If that's something I pick ahead of time before Thursday, I'll put it in there so that when they're practicing before rehearsal Thursday, they know what song to really listen to. It's like, oh, I know that one. I don't need to practice that one. Oh, I better hit on that one because I'm going to be leading it, right? You can put those in the notes there. The other thing is on the right side of this, and it works for Beyond Music too. I'm just showing you kind of music example. They have these attachments, paperclip. This is where you can store all your files so they can access the MP3, which you can transpose and put in the keys you're playing, so you don't have to play everything in the key. If you drop in an MP3 in the original key, they have implement inside their app that you can, inside this, that you can downgrade the recording so that it plays it in the right key. Now the people sound like this, but they can at least play along, practice along in the right key. Then I have the song select chart that I have in there. You can also make your own chord charts. It does attach because I've synced up the ProPresenter file. I can upload that file, so if I've done that song before, it'll save in Planning Center. So the next time I do that song, uploads. And then, I put this YouTube video. You can link YouTube videos, you don't have to MP3s. I linked a YouTube video to the electric guitar. How do you play this song? Because I had somebody that's like, I'm not getting this lick. Like, check that out. It'll help you. Yes?
Sorry, you're blowing my mind again. How do you make it change the key with them using Planning Center?
Transpose button. So link song. This is going inside the song itself. I have it in the different keys. It's originally in B, right? Okay, this might be one that I did in the old Transposer app. But if you put an MP3 in B, you can click on it, and there's this little transpose button. And then you tell it what key you want it to go to, from this to this. Up or down. That works with MP3s. It does not work with YouTube videos. Disclaimer.
Those
Yes.
notes that you put in don't transfer into Music Stand, right?
Good question. Where'd my iPad go? Let's look. I don't remember if it does. I think you're right. I don't think it does. No, it does not. But I usually will print that front page. I didn't talk about that too, but I'll talk about that when I get to the whole teams. Before Sunday morning happens, I do a full, just because of our context, we do the broadcasting and streaming and online. We do a full-blown production meeting with not just the band. This is after band's kind of sound check rehearsal, but with all the camera operators, the directors, the producers, slide operators, so that I print out the sheet that has all the notes, and we go through it line by line. Okay, who's doing prayers? Who's leading this thing? And so that not only are they all looking at the same page because it's built, but then we're communicating about it. Like, hey, this camera person didn't show up for this. Are they going to be here? Now I have 40 minutes to figure it out, right? Have that last minute meeting, which is good. Go back to the main plan. You can play with these timings. That's not the plan I'm on. It's last Sunday, contemporary. You can play with these timings. I found the Lord's Prayer is pretty close to a minute. I don't know how fast your church prays it, but it's pretty close to a minute. They have a Services Live module that you can use on any app, do it on a phone. You can do it inside ProPresenter to where you can actually measure these. So it'll take this order of worship, and then just tell somebody to hit next. So when the song's over and they're going to confession, hit next. New timer starts, and it'll track time. And it'll show you the length of what happened in real time. So then you can adjust from there. It's like, our welcome actually takes 2 minutes. I first thought that was 1 minute before, but our pastors tell some jokes, and
How do you start the timer thing again?
it's on Services Live app. So they have it here too. So if you have somebody just sitting in the back, where's it at? They moved it. Here it is. Services Live. Looks like this. Sure. So I have negative 7,000 minutes from last week. I didn't start the timer. But yeah, you take control, you start, you do all the things, it'll save the timings so that in your debrief meeting you'd be like, yeah, why did, communion did take 10 minutes, maybe we did add another song. Or why did prayers take 3 minutes? I don't know. You can ask those questions. Kind of get more into just the order of worship. I also put the roadmap I talked about in rehearsal. I also put it here in case they forgot to write it down on Thursday, or in case they want to write it before Thursday. I try to get it close to what we want to put in there. They have a song sequence inside. If you click on any element, you can put in your link song, notes. You can get really detailed with this, or little. I don't do specific notes for like audiovisual band or whatever, because it just stacks up. But you can put in song details. Here's the CCLI number of the song. You can do your CCLI reporting through Planning Center. You can add your sequences here. So if I have a sequence for this song, okay, we're going to do the intro, then we're going to play verse 1, chorus, right? And then you can just save it. And now every time you do this song, you can save that to the song, and every time we do that song, it'll stay the same. Or you can change it for like a specific Sunday. But you can put that in there. Yes?
Question. So I tend to use, I customize the notes that
Uh-huh.
you can put on there, and I just have 15 notes or whatever. And I've noticed that those notes perpetuate, no matter when you add the song, those notes are kind of like permanent attached to that song. Is
Yes.
the description the same way? Because I see
No.
you're using a description.
Item description, it only goes to unique service.
I like
Yes.
that. Okay.
Yes, the item descriptions are only for that. If you have song notes, it stays with the song.
Stays with the song. But
Yes,
that-
item description, and it shows up here. Some of those other notes that you saw, you have to like
You have to-
columnize and add,
Yeah.
you know, which
Same with printing your outline.
it's like, I didn't see that note. It's like, you didn't check the box. I just put it here. It shows up for them every time. Same with, that's why I put LSB numbers on hymns. I put it in the item description so that really quickly the elder that has that, or whoever's setting the hymn board, right, they can just open Planning Center. Hey, there's the hymn number. I have it. So that's cool. It's, they don't have to look for the bulletin. They don't have to look for, it's all on the same page. Readings. I make a big note here. My arrow doesn't extend all the way. But hey, readings are attached. So my lay readers can get this email, tell me they're good, get all the 3 readings. I attach it. That's a Word document. Just they can print it, or we have a copy for them, but they have the possibility. I didn't put which creed we did. I needed to put that. Forgot. So baptism. So I don't have to put in all the information here, right? Our church secretary, who scheduled the baptism, or talked to the family, knows their full name and how to spell it correctly. Put it in the notes. What service it is, so we can unclick that. So it's only at the 10:30 service. This is their name. Now the slide, the banner, and the pastor hopefully knows who they're baptizing, right? This is who we know is going to be there at this time. So that's anybody can input information from anywhere, and it shows up in the plan. So she doesn't have to tell me, "Hey Jordan, there's a baptism this week." I go to the plan, I'm like, "Oh, there's a baptism this week." It's all on the same page. And then when I print this, we talk about it Sunday. "Hey, elders, there's a baptism this week. Make sure we get warm water for the baptism." Right? It's all on the same page. It's all important. Sermon, you can put sermon notes in here. You can attach slides if you want to. Do that as well if there's pictures or something. We also do our halftime show. I kind of took some of that out. But what are we talking about this week? We're talking about the lasagna meal on our halftime show. Just gives us a conglomerate of information. The second tab is our team. Right? What Planning Center created when they created Planning Center Services is the ultimate volunteer communication tool, which is awesome. There's a caveat. You have to read your email, right? Not everybody reads your email. There is the Planning Center app. If you're using Church Center, you can push notifications to your Church Center app. A lot of people like that. Makes it really easy to respond. Basically, when I send out an invite to this, there's a big green button that says, actually it looks like this. I'll just show it to you. There, we're going into Carlos. View Carlos's profile. Communication. It also keeps track of all your emails so that you've sent. So if you need whatever safety. So this is what it looks like. Hey Carlos, would you be available to play and sing next Sunday for worship? This was a Sunday. He's here at the conference with me, so we couldn't rehearse Thursday. There's no this, whatever. Big green accept button, big red decline button, right? I tell them, you're not going to make me feel bad. Just let me know. Can you make it? Yes. Let your yes be yes, and your no be no. No may be option, right? That's biblical. But if they hit red decline, it does say reason. A new window pops up reason. They don't have to give a reason. It says optional, reason optional. I get a lot of work out of town, different stuff. I have called somebody and be like, "Hey, I didn't get an email from you. How's it going?" "Oh, I'm on vacation in Cabo." Like, I don't want to call you on vacation at Cabo. Let me know that you're not going to make it, right? Answer before you leave or block out your dates. I'll talk about that too. So that's kind of the email. Here's the other cool thing that my volunteers don't know. If I click on this, went too far. Keeps going back to that 12th. If I look at this, it shows me when I sent the email, shows me when they read the email, and shows me when they responded to the email. So I sent it at 3:12. I know he read it right away. He didn't respond until 3 days later. But I sent it out ahead of time for February 12th that he responded enough time. But I've had someone who's like, I know you read it. Just hit yes or no. Right? Easy. The other thing too, so we have different service times. Over here, I can put in different times. So he's a drummer, right? I'm asking him to be there at 9 and 10:30. I'm asking him to be there Thursday at band rehearsal. I'm asking him to be there Sunday morning for band rehearsal. He doesn't have to come to the coffee setup time and the greeter call time. I probably should have checked production meeting, but whatever. But you can schedule different times. So that email that included for the worship team had, here's this accept or decline. Here's where we're expecting you to be when, right? And so then for our greeters, please come before other people get there, so that they're greeted. Right? So just kind of a call time to remind them this is kind of our expectation set ahead of time. And a reminder for them. Within that, you can set up different reminders. That's not a good example. Do I have reminders? Yeah. So they get a reminder one day before the time, hey, you're supposed to be here at this time. So it'll automatically send that when they're scheduled, and they've accepted. So if they haven't, well, it might do it unconfirmed. I'm not sure. Question?
Yeah, so you send an email out, and you go back and you adjust something in Planning Center.
Mm-hmm.
Are they notified of that?
They're not notified of the change, but they will see it in real time.
Okay.
So if and I've actually had it to where I'm working on it, and someone's in it, and they're like, hey, why is that song? Oh, never mind, you moved it. They'll see it in real time. And I've actually had multiple people on Planning Center at some time. I'm like, can you move that up? And then they do it and I see it on my screen. It's pretty cool. It's really fast refresh rate. So any notes that you add, and if they check it ahead of time and you've seen that read, it's like, I might have to email them or text them and be like, hey, I added that other chart, whatever. Or I've had them get on and be like, can you add a capo chart? I'm like, I'm literally doing it right now. They're like, okay, cool. So there's still communication on that end. But it's okay that you decline if you can't be there if you're going to be out of town. But it just lets me know I have to fill that position. We got 3 camera people that we need for the angles, right? So I want to make sure I went through 3 before I could get to more. Not only is it good for bands, but then you can do more, right? Our first impression team, our greeters. Why is it important for the greeters to know the plan? When that baptism family shows up and they know they can look for a baptism family, usually they're carrying a baby in a big white dress or something. Hey, I knew there was a baptism. I can help them get where they need to go, right? Because they've looked at it ahead of time, hopefully. That's the point of inviting greeters. Coffee team. Do they need to know the songs? No, but they might get excited about it, and that might build some. If they're friends or they're married, if they're friends and they're like, hey, did you see the song the worship band's doing today? I'm so excited for that song. Oh, I've never heard that song before. Well, get ready because it's going to be good, right? You create some buy-in with that. They get to be in the know. Right? They get to be a little exclusive. They get to be part of the team. We're all part of the same team here. That's why it's called teams. Right? So there's your, our Welcome Center people. They're all seeing this. Same, we actually do this too with our children and youth. I'll just show this real quick. For children's ministry, this coming Sunday, this is outlined a little different. So for our Sunday school program, here's the schedule. For all of them to know. So it's all in the same plan. So I don't have like a service time. But we know this is when they need to change groups between nursery, pre-K, kindergarten, and 1 through 4. In the same plan, because it's happening at the same time in a different room. Here's the middle high schedule. Here's the high school schedule. So they're all seeing what's happening during the day. And if something's different, if there's a different skit, or we're teaching this song for Palm Sunday, and it's in there, look at those dance moves ahead of time so you can teach the kids the dance moves. Right? And this is what we send out every week. Hey, are you going to guide and be there for the kids this week? Right? It's a fantastic tool, right? Get it to know. I need to know who's there. Then it's separated by team. Youth mentors for middle high, senior high, junior high. Do we have people in those areas, or do we need to find some more? Because if we have, and we can have some volunteers that are schedulers that then check this, so that I don't have to, or someone else doesn't have to be like, okay, we got a bunch of declines here. We need to call some people maybe to make sure later in the week that we're filling those positions. Because otherwise, if there's a kindergarten class and no one's there to turn on the lights, open the door, watch the kindergarten kids, parents might not be very happy if they want their kid to go to Sunday school. Yes.
So when someone declines, you just leave the decline on there and you add another one?
Yep, and it'll do it for you.
That's smart, because I always used to get rid of the declines, and then sometimes I'll contact the same person twice.
Yeah, it's good to keep the declines too, because then if you see a pattern, and you can click on a single person and see their schedule, and they had 6 declines in a row, it might be time to call them.
That's smart. I've never thought to do that.
And be like, do you really want to do this? Are you really available? I had one lady, she was declining every week, and she's like, I just had a baby. I'm like, I didn't know that. Congratulations. I knew you were pregnant. I didn't know when. I wasn't going to be like, when's that baby due? That's a problem. Tough to ask. But it's like, great, I'm going to take you off the schedule for a while so that you don't get my emails that you have to decline on. Or at least put that in the reason. Come on. Anyway. Yes?
Did it take a while for your congregation to accept and to cooperate with organization and structure?
Yep.
Because I work with a lot of people who they resist.
Sure.
And so you got everybody all on the same page. How did you do it?
Yeah, it takes some vision casting to say this is where we're going to go with it. Who it's beneficial for, why we as a leadership need to do it, and why we need your input. If you're resistant to it, maybe you're not fit for it, kind of thing. There's some conversations that had to be had there. Buy-in. There was one other point I was going to make. Resistant to it.
You have everybody do it. You even send the preaching pastor.
Yeah, I send the preaching pastorate too.
So
Leadership. Yeah, from top to bottom. And you're going to say, as a church, here's what we're doing and why. And we're going to send out, please, check your emails if you can, because this is going to help us. Rather than texting you, calling Joe, emailing so-and-so, sending a tweet to Jimmy, it helps us streamline our just so we can know ahead of time. So there's some vision casting. There's some growing pains. We had to start 1 inch at a time with this. We just started with the band.
You use the word vision casting?
Vision casting.
Can you explain that a little bit?
So if you have a vision, you got to get it out there. Right, Kat? No. Right. Simple definition.
Sounds like.
But it's harping on it over and over, right? So if you are leading to, here's a why, here's a how, and a because, right? And if we don't do this, then we may not be on the same page, and maybe things fall down the cracks, right? It's like, oh, we forgot to make communion for Sunday. Like that would be a pretty big ball to drop, right? And if we can communicate it, and we can be on the same page, we don't get frustrations, right? We don't get, it's like, well, so-and-so doesn't show up knowing what they're doing, right? We can all try to work together to be on the same team and be on the same page. So that, because what are we ultimately trying to do in church? Communicate the gospel, right? That's the most important thing. So if you're casting that vision of what's our top goal, we're communicating the gospel. How are we going to do that in these areas, right? Coffee ministry is important because they're pointing people to Christ too. That's our mission statement, our Savior, pointing people to Christ. They're pointing people to Christ too. It's different than maybe somebody playing guitar, but they have the same role. So we want you to know what's going on and let us know that you're going to be there, or else we might find somebody else. Because we need somebody to make coffee because they want coffee on Sunday.
Is Planning Center really the kind of the Cadillac, so to speak?
It is the Cadillac of it.
Not like Church 360 or other things that some of us may use.
Right. Here's my 2 cents on it, and my pastor would tell me that I'm all Planning Center all the time. The Church 360 is good at some things. There's a lot of church management softwares. There's a lot of people that are trying to imitate this. Planning Center's got 10 plus years under their belt in this. They've been doing it a long time. This is one of the top tools, industry standard, small churches to big churches that they're using. This attaches to a church management software model. Like I said, Joel Wetstein talks about that tomorrow. Go to his. He taught me. It really helps. You can kind of get the heartbeat of your congregation and your people. It really is industry standard. It can work with CCB and some of those other church management softwares. You kind of have your people in 2 different camps, so to speak. But this is for your people that are really involved in worship or children's ministry or whatever. Yes?
I'm going to miss the question, but we went off of Planning Center
Yep.
to do something that wasn't Planning Center, and it was not good. It was not good. And now we're back to planning center. So,
Yeah.
the,
Right. And if you change multiple times and you tell people like, all right, now we're just going to text you, and now we're going to try this. It's like pick a lane and kind of get into it. Is my thing. Lots of questions right now. What time are we at? Are we done at 5? 5:30. Okay. I do want to get. I'll take like 5 minutes of questions real quick, and then I'm going to get into like the ProPresenter side. So here, yes.
Planning center is the best. How we got our people on board, because the entire staff was using it. All of the donations were through Planning Center. All
Yep.
of our tracking and data was through Planning Center. All of our physical space management. We made our own best practices. It was like a Saturday morning thing. We had food. We invited all our volunteers and made them sit down for a PowerPoint and showed them how to
Yep.
accept invites in the blockout time.
Yeah, takes teaching, show them how to use it, why it works, how it's cool, gives them a tool to do it. Yes. Yes.
Did you implement this, or were they using something like this, or using this before you got it?
8 years ago, when I got on staff, I was using it before. I actually brought it to Concordia. I was using it, volunteer down at Salem Tomball, and I was like, I need to use this, because we have worship teams at the college that don't know what we're doing. So I brought it to college. I brought it to Our Savior and really kind of vision casted from the beginning, starting with the worship team, and then we grew out. So then when we moved to our new building, we established some new teams of like, hey, now we need more welcome. Now we have a place for coffee. So we started to develop those teams, and we're able to implement it as we went, which was good. Yeah.
Just a logistical question.
Uh-huh.
So I assume the leaders of each team are sending out whatever SOS large group.
Yeah.
The leader of that group is sending out.
They can. Yeah.
So for the staff,
Uh-huh.
this panel view of putting each team and seeing where everybody's at, do you program that specifically, or is it just kind of open? Like each team leader can see all of the other teams and who's
You can do it either way. So if you're a team builder in your area, we can say you're in charge of this team, right? We actually, for a while, we got to start with this. We had the same people like for a month, so we created a template. So when we add a new service, all these people came in at once, and then one person sent it to everybody.
And then you set it up to send every Thursday at whatever time, and you never have to send it.
But as far as like the viewing point,
Sure.
like programming the staff.
Yeah,
to see,
and you can make it, so I can make it too where I just see my teams. So this is seeing all teams, but I can have it see my teams, and then I'm only seeing the people I need to worry about. Yeah, good question.
So we all have those volunteers that will answer it immediately once you schedule them.
Yep.
The ones that are medium, the ones that you can text constantly or call them for a month and they still won't answer. How have you found a good way to communicate and try to get timely answers back? Do you not text them? Do you say only through the app? What do you do?
Depends a little bit on the position. So if you're a musician, I need to know Tuesday or Wednesday before rehearsal, because if you're not drumming, I need to get another drummer. Start sicking the people that are responding right away to the people that aren't. And kind of have them casually be like, hey, when do you respond on Planning Center? Ask them, oh, I should probably do it more often. Because then team building kind of thing. Because I have one guy that'll be like, hey, and they're part of that worship ministry team that I talk with. And we set that as a goal to get better at responding earlier for my sake, so I'm not texting you. And then I tell them, is this working where I text you every week, or can you respond? Just have that open dialogue with your team.
You just shoot a text.
Yeah, I look every day. And some especially Tuesday, Wednesday, every other hour or something, and I have it. They have a widget on the phone. It's on my home screen, of who's read and still question marked, so I can at least just peek at my phone. Okay, I still have one question mark. Maybe I need to text that person. Whatever. Yeah.
You keep people kind of rotating through, so you're not trying to burn out anybody. Do you use auto scheduling occasionally, or do you just do that manually?
I haven't. I take the time to do it manually just with my small band. I've done some auto scheduling for readers and stuff if all of them show up and don't care. I lead the readers team too. I just do once a month meeting with them. First come, first serve. So if you come to the meeting, you get to pick when you get to read. Other than that, I just schedule it out or auto schedule. So because a lot of them are like, whatever, schedule me. So some want it. I want 9 o'clock the first week every Sunday. It's great, And you can set that preferences in each person's profile too. Yes.
It makes the planning side of it, not the scheduling side, but the planning side makes
Yep.
really great sense on contemporary worship stuff.
Yep.
Traditional worship stuff, if you use Lutheran Service Builder, is
Oh.
import stuff in there?
Yeah, you can make a template. Check this out.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Traditional service. I'm adding one. Which setting do you want?
Yeah, one.
Do you want one with communion or without? All right. Setting 1 with communion. And I did this ahead of time, right? I made all those templates. I just went through and put all the elements.
Just have them in there, and then they're all there, and then.
So I click setting 1 with communion. Bam.
Yeah, you still spent some time thinking.
Yeah. So I have open spots for the hymns. So I just insert hymn here, take that placeholder out.
Take a new person to get stuff set up. It's usually that learning curve.
What do you mean? Oh,
Like all this stuff. Like, are you?
all your templates?
Yeah.
A day. Take a day to do all your templates, and then you're golden. Yeah, a couple hours.
Just a warning with that, if you've got people that are working with Song Select and they're importing, make sure that they're importing the correct version of the lyrics or...
Oh, yeah.
Good catch, good caveat. Yes, so you can attach, if you use Song Select CCLI with all your license number stuff and reporting, you can attach those. So when you go to like add a song, right, and if you're adding a new song, you can search the CCL library. So if I'm looking for Joy to the World, there's a bunch of different versions, right? Make sure you pick the one that you want. If you need a recording, or you like, I heard that song on iTunes, they have the album version of that popular recording. A lot of people don't know this about Planning Center. Check this out. There's the View Top Songs. This is polling all of Planning Center users of what they're doing on Ash Wednesday this year. And the bolded ones are ones that you have in your library. So, and compared to last year, Firm Foundation's up 28 moves.
Where was that?
Top songs. So if you go to add new song, there's a button that says top songs. So yeah, for some reason, for February 26th, Goodness of God is what a lot of people are singing that day. So, and maybe it help you find a new song that you're not doing. Like, I don't know that one. Maybe I should check it out. It's up 14 from last year. I don't know. Cool page. Don't use this to pick your songs, but look at it. Okay? They have a bigger one too, but it's a cool tool. So they're pulling all the Planning Center users everywhere. Rehearse tab. This is so you're. Oh no. You let me down. That's awesome. Great. We're going to look at ProPresenter. Right? So if you haven't used ProPresenter, this is kind of what the user interface looks like, or UI. This is where you can have your playlist, right? So these are your different playlists, and then all the items in your playlist. So this was a quick chapel. We just had a chapel slide, song, a message, a song. So that was the liturgy for that service, right? This is your slides, right, laid out. And for your song, when you import, you can import songs from your Song Select. You don't have to type out every single word, right? It'll put for you on that first slide or last slide, or you can designate what you want, your CCLI license number information that you're supposed to project. If you're not doing that, it'll do that for you based on what you've selected. And then you can change your arrangement. There's an arrangement tab up here where you can put your slides in order. Say this Sunday, we're not going to start with verse 1. We're going to start with 2 choruses, right? So I can just drag a chorus down, which is just He Won't on this song. So let's say we're going to sing verse 1 twice. Rather than taking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slides and typing them all out or copy pasting, I can just drop another verse 1 there. All those slides populated. So set your arrangement that way. Hey, let's add a chorus. It's as easy as just dropping one down, dropping one in. That way. Your viewing windows over here. So this is what's going to show on your screen. You can also see your other screens if you set them up. I don't know if I've done this yet. We actually have multiple outputs. So from ProPresenter, it can do multiple things. So this is like our main output that's sending these lyrics to our projectors, right? We have another output that's sending the lyrics lower third to our live stream, just from the same slide. It's also sending the lyrics to our confidence monitors so our singers can see it in a different format. And this can have an announcement layer too that'll run pre-service slides out in the lobby. So I have all those outputs going at once on one computer. She was first, sorry.
Is that background going to populate on all of those?
Yes.
And it's just
just showing the first one, like this is the
Yep.
background of your
Unlike PowerPoint, where you have to have a background on every slide, once you hit, there's different layers in ProPresenter. So there's a background layer and there's a foreground layer. So your background media is going to be in your background layer. Any lyrics or anything you put foreground is going to be over that background until you change the background, or tell it to clear the background. Yep. So whether it's a looping video, so you can see that video looping, to have that cross turning, or if you have a static picture, it'll go across all the slides. So you don't have to go in and apply all or copy paste to every single slide if you're using PowerPoint. You can do that. Yes.
Yeah, so that's one view. What about like the live stream, the other things?
Yeah.
That all operate by one person?
Yes. I don't have the connections here on this computer to show that, but yes. So Jake Goslin Churchfront has a really good video on this. You can buy a separate graphics card, so you're not killing your computer, that then sends another video output that you run like a downstream key. We have it too to where the slide operator can take over, so it'll be lower thirds lyrics, but then when it goes like full lower sprayer, it'll go full screen. So it'll take over, and then we have a look. They have this thing called looks that you tell what output to do what. So it'll change, so then it'll go back to lower thirds. They can see the cameras again. So then our lyric operator's doing that. Yeah, good question. So how Planning Center works with this, and hopefully Planning Center's not down right now. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go in and find that service. So here's next week. I'm going to start preparing for this Sunday right now. So we saw that Planning Center plan. Oh, select. So now you're going to see that plan build in, and because it found all those things in Planning Center, this looked very similar to my Planning Center plan. It's auto-populating all that. So it's saying, hey, this file exists. Yeah, I want to use that. I want to use that file. Yeah, I have 2 Peter. Yeah, I have Rock of Ages. Yeah, I have the Creed. I'm just going to apply all. Use the existing. Right? So now they're all in here. So I had the words to the song. I'm going to pick my arrangement that I preset. Yep, here's my arrangement. That I don't have the background attached to this computer. There's my background slide and my lyric slide all in the order that I want. Okay, so it auto-populated for me in real time. You guys saw that was like, what, 10 seconds? All my slides for Sunday. Because I have them in Planning Center. So let me kind of tell you how I did it first, right? So this song, right? Once I have my arrangement in here, and you can do this once you have your plan. It's still, you can see this. It's showing the Planning Center logo. It's still a Planning Center playlist. So if you edit in Planning Center, you can refresh. So if I moved the baptism to the front, it would refresh and move it up there too. It follows what you do in Planning Center. If I have this song and how I want it, if I right-click that, if I hit Upload to Planning Center, this file, this ProPresenter.pro file, will now attach to that Planning Center song. So now anytime I do Holy, 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 and I bring up this arrangement, it's going to come up that way. Does that make sense?
Is that how you do it? Or do you attach it through Planning Center finding your profile?
No, I just upload it from ProPresenter.
When you put it in next time, it's all.
It's all there. I just have to make sure I have the right arrangement. And if I've done it different ways, like a Good Friday arrangement, or this is the one with more courses, I might have multiple, then I just pick my arrangement. But I still do it in the arrangement view that way. You might have to put in some more sermon slides or whatever. But all those songs are pretty much ready to go. You do some editing, right? But at least you're not starting from complete ground zero with your backgrounds. Then there's a whole library of place that you can store. I don't have it here, but a library that you can store your video backgrounds, and then you can just drag them in to where you want them. So you don't have to you just do it from the window, click and drag your backgrounds to where you want it, kind of thing. Not now. Yes.
Are you going to talk about how this works with the tracks we talked about last session? Like this right now,
automation.
you have a person clicking.
Sure.
And then if you're using a track system that's also connected to this, does it automatically?
It doesn't automatically do that. So and this is a question from my previous session too. So how I built the tracks in Prime, I just have to tell prime then with the MIDI note number what number it is in the playlist, and then it'll play it. So if I've done that song before and I've preset all of which number slide, like play slide 2 here, so that I've done that song before, now it'll just know where it's at and play. I just have to tell it where to start, and I have to be in this playlist to do it. I can talk to you more a little bit after on that too. Yeah, it's good. And there's some, and Jake Goslett, Churchfront has some videos about it too.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
My question is about headings. Like in Planning Center right now, we have like headings for the different sections
Mhm.
of the service, and I see that the heading comes in there.
Yep.
How does that behave as the heading? Is that like you gotta use the space bar twice to go to the next
Yeah.
document in the playlist?
And I always teach my volunteers never to do spacebar twice. Click into a new section is what I always say. But yes, it operates as a playlist item, but it doesn't have attachments. So it's there to show like there's a break, but you can't really click into it. I'm pretty sure if I double click, it'll go to it, then you just have to click again to go to the next one. So it's just an extra click probably if you're doing it that way. But you can also, so then what I usually do, because in case whatever, like internet syncing, whatever, you can convert it then to a standard playlist, and then you can move it around in ProPresenter. So then I'm unlinking them, in essence, then I add my announcement slides, because I don't put that in Planning Center. I add that in or add some more graphics or whatever, and then I can just delete the headings if I want to for the presentation. So at least it gives you a starter point. Right, so all your plan and all the work that you've done to set up your plan allows you now to put it in there. So if you've done those songs, if you've done those hymns before, you can have them done and preset for you. Save a ton of time. Yes?
When you're importing hymns, such as from like Lutheran Service Builder to Planning Center,
Mhm.
you have to do you save it in one spot and bring it over, or is there a way to import that easily?
Good question. Yeah. So if it's written out in like Lutheran Service Builder and you so they call, this is a playlist, these are playlist items that appear in the library. So then you make a new presentation. So my new presentation is Holy, 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 right? I'm going to copy paste, I'm going to put my 2 lines, I'm going to make that song, then I'm going to upload it and attach it to Planning Center's Holy, Holy, Holy. Next time I do that song and I put it in ProPresenter, it's good to go. You might have to type it out once, especially if it's not in there, but then don't type it again. Save time. I'm with you 100%. And I love it. It gets me because I'm like, weeks in a row, I'm like, I'm chewing out. And then all of a sudden they picked a new hymn I haven't done in ProPresenter. I'm like, oh, all right. Do it once and then you're done. But at least you're typing one and not all 5. Right? So each time you're building your library and adding songs.
You're talking about typing it rather than just copying and pasting it?
You can copy paste it too.
Okay. I was
Yeah.
I don't really type because that's in there too.
Helps me work on my typing. Yeah, copy paste it, whatever. Yes.
So one of the things that we do is with Song Select, so you can import your hymns into Song Select, as long as you make sure you find the right arranger.
Sure.
But when you do that, you have to double check your words.
I do the same thing, save me time so I don't have to copy paste everything.
Yes.
That way it already separates stanzas for me. But then I have a hymnal and I make sure, or somebody with me, I read and they fix, Yes. So at least saves you some work, right? Saves you a little bit of time. Hymnary.com. If you don't know hymnary.com, free resource, easy one to copy paste. Save Lutheran, because it has all the hymnals. Save Lutheran Service Book as your hymnal. If you're using, you can save LW too, and then you can type a hymn. It'll show you the lyrics real quick. I just copy paste from there. Sometimes faster than Song Select too. I've used that as a tool. Hymnary.com. Yes.
I always end up importing,
or .org.
even if I pick the right arrangement, I always end up importing it from Lutheran Service Builder because CCLI is just wrong.
Yeah.
Or different, but even the contemporary songs, like the way that they'll put the...
Yeah, double check your lyrics,
it's not
always.
Right. So I just always go in there and...
But at least you're changing one word and not 100 words. So that's the pitch for ProPresenter. Using it that way, your things seem to look good. I'll kind of show this for a second. So you can edit your slides. If you're in a text here, I have that slide selected. I hit the edit. This probably looks pretty familiar. They made it look like PowerPoint. So you can do the same thing, fonts, whatever, on each of your slides. They have the reflow, so you can quickly copy and move to different things. You can do insert slide bank, or if you know the hack, Control Command Enter to separate. Like this could be 4 words. Here, let me give you an example. Right? So there's a 4-word slide. Now if I insert a slide break where I want it to after Mighty, now it's 2 slides. Save time there. Reflow Editor, great way to look at it. This is a big sell too. If you need to import a Bible verse, they have a Bible tab. You just type in the Bible verse, makes the slides for you, save it as a playlist, plug it in. Yeah, they have free Bibles. Yeah, and I haven't set up the Bible thing yet, so I can't show it to you. All your editors, download it. ProPresenter is free to download to play with. You just can't present with it. It'll show a watermark, right? You could if you wanted a watermark, and you tell people, "Hey, we're going to try this. Check this out." You can play with it, download it, put it on your computer, add your backgrounds, work on. You can put theme templates. So if you have and they have some built in. So if you have lyric styles that you want, so this one has different shapes. If you want your lyrics to be in a box, they have it for you. If you want it to be lower thirds, you want it to be centered, you can click this template and all your words change to that style, right? So you can play with different things. You can save themes. You can select a slide and then make that slide a theme. So, question?
Yeah, so one thing I've run into a couple times on ProPresenter is, I don't know if there's a way to fix this, that if you accidentally press the down key or something when you're fixing slides, it erases the background.
Erases the background.
So it'll go back to a black background or somehow.
So probably what it's doing. So if you do down arrow, see how it'll work down your playlist.
Yeah.
So if they hit down arrow and then probably space bar or something or then right arrow, it might go to your, and you might have a clear slide or something. It'll go to a different section. Always use space bar for changing slides or right arrow. I think right arrow is a little too close to down arrow, so I always use space bar. I tell my people left hand on the space bar, click your slides, or right hand, whatever. Keep another hand on your back button just in case, and then to go into a new section, click on the first slide. Just so it activates the background, so you're good to go. I just do it because I've just always done it that way.
We use the mouse.
So you don't click it twice. Mouse works the same thing.
Basically, I just go to the next slide, and I'm ready. All I do is click.
Yep, clicking works too.
Yeah.
Yep, I've seen, you can buy different devices to push buttons, whatever. Question in the back?
I was just going to say, Stream Deck.
Yeah, Stream Deck. You could run a Stream Deck if there's a little thing with a bunch of buttons that has an arrow button that all they have to hit is a button. Actually, Renewed Vision ProPresenter makes a model with a Stream Deck. It's that thing with like 9 buttons that streamers use. They have a version just for slides. So you open the program, they have that there. You have a home button, you have a next button. They have a template. Makes it a little more dummy proof, whatever. Yeah, any other questions? All right, 3 minutes early. Hope you have a great time. Thank you so much.